Now, let's begin. The Humvee rattled through the mountain pass as Lance Gallagher pressed his back against the armored plating, his rifle steady despite the rough terrain. Dust swirled through the Afghan highlands, coating everything in a fine layer of grit. His team, four of the best operators the military had ever produced, moved in practice silence through what intelligence had labeled a high-value target compound. Viper 1, you're clear to breach, crackled the voice in his earpiece. Lance signaled his team. They'd done this dance 100 times before. What made this mission different was the silence that followed the breach. No resistance, no targets, just empty rooms and a lingering smell of burned documents. Command, this is Viper 1. Building is clean. They knew we were coming. Lance kicked at a pile of ashes that might have been intelligence gold mine hours ago. His phone buzzed. The screen showed a number he didn't recognize. Lance never received calls during operations. Never. His blood chilled before he even answered. Major Gallagher? The voice was weathered, professional. This is Detective Brian Hall, San Diego PD. I need you to find somewhere private. Lance's hand tightened on his phone. He'd been in combat zones for 15 years. He'd seen things that would break most men. But something in Hall's tone made his stomach drop. I'm in the middle of... Sir, your mother was found dead this morning. I'm very sorry. The words hit harder than any IED. Martha Gallagher. The woman who'd raised him alone after his father died in Desert Storm. The woman who'd sent care packages to every hellhole he'd been deployed to. The woman who'd stood by him through the worst divorce San Diego County had ever seen. Ow! Lance's voice came out flat, controlled. Years of training taking over. We're treating it as a homicide. She was suffocated. Sir, we found fingerprints on the pillow. They belong to Trevor Harding. Lance's vision narrowed. Trevor Harding. The man his ex-wife Candace had married 6 months after their divorce was finalized. The same man who'd sent him smiling photos of himself with Lance's 8-year-old son, Kenny. There's more. Hall's pause stretched too long. Your son, Kenny, has been missing for 72 hours. Candace reported him gone the same day your mother died, but... Another pause. Sir, the timeline doesn't match. Neighbors saw Kenny getting into Trevor's car the night before your mother's death. Candace didn't report it for over 24 hours. The compound around Lance seemed to blur. His team leader, Sergeant Carl Perkins, appeared at his shoulder, concern etched on his weathered face. My son is missing, Lance repeated, making sure he'd heard correctly. Yes, sir. We've issued an Amber Alert. We're doing everything. Lance ended the call and immediately dialed his commanding officer, General Edmund Dickey. The man answered on the first ring. Gallagher, I already know. Hall contacted me 10 minutes ago. Get to the airstrip. The jet's fueling now. Sir, the mission is secondary to this. You're taking your team. You have 96 hours of approved leave, effective immediately. Dickey's voice softened slightly. Lance, your mother was a good woman. Find your boy. Do what you do best. And if the people responsible are still in the country, then God help them, because the law won't reach them before you do. The C-17's engines hummed as Lance sat in the cargo bay, his laptop open, diving into everything he could access about Trevor Harding. His team sat nearby, already shifting into operational mode. They trained together, bled together. When Lance called, they came. No questions. Carl Perkins, his second-in-command, was a stocky man from Texas who could track a target through a sandstorm. Beside him sat Phil Duncan, their tech specialist who could hack a smartphone with a paperclip and spite. The other two were brothers, Jose and Walter Miles, former Army Rangers who'd joined Lance's unit after their skills caught the attention of the higher-ups. Talk to me, Phil, Lance said without looking up from his screen. Phil's fingers danced across his tablet. Trevor Harding, age 37, grew up in Seattle, moved to San Diego 8 years ago. On paper, he's a financial consultant. Clean record, good credit, pays his taxes. On paper, Lance caught the emphasis. On paper doesn't mean shit when you know where to look. Phil pulled up a series of financial statements. He's living way above his means. The house he bought with Candace? $2 million. His declared income? $80,000 a year. Either he's the world's best saver, or he's dirty. Carl leaned in. What kind of dirty? That's where it gets interesting. Phil switched screens. 3 years ago, he was investigated by the SEC for insider trading. Case was dropped. Not dismissed, dropped. Witness refused to testify. Evidence disappeared. Lance felt the familiar cold settle over him. It was the same feeling he got before a mission went sideways. Who was the witness? A stockbroker named Mark Pennington. Want to guess where Pennington is now? Dead or disappeared. Winner, winner. Overdose officially, but the coroner's report. Phil trailed off, pulling up the document. Inconsistent with the scene. Pennington was left-handed. The needle was in his right arm. Jose Miles whistled low. So Harding's got bodies behind him. And now he's got Lance's mom and his kid, Walter added grimly. Lance closed his laptop. The pieces were forming a picture he didn't like. Why would he kill my mother? What's the connection? Maybe there isn't one, Carl suggested. Maybe she saw something she shouldn't have. Or maybe, Phil said slowly, this is about Candace. Lance's jaw tightened. Candace Tate. Now Candace Harding. They'd met 12 years ago, young and stupid. She was a paralegal, beautiful and ambitious. They'd married fast, had Kenny within a year. But deployment after deployment had worn them down. Or rather, worn her down. The divorce had been vicious. Candace wanted full custody, wanted the house, wanted alimony that would have bankrupted him. His mother had testified on his behalf, told the judge about the times Candace had disappeared for days, about the suspicious men she'd seen at the house. The judge had given Lance joint custody, split the assets evenly. Candace had been furious. 2 months later, she was dating Trevor Harding. Pull everything on Candace, Lance ordered. Bank records, phone logs, travel history. I want to know every breath she's taken for the last year. The jet's intercom crackled. Major Gallagher, we're beginning our descent into San Diego. ETA, 15 minutes. Lance stood, checking his sidearm out of habit. His mother was dead. His son was missing. And the people responsible thought they could run. They were wrong. Detective Brian Hall met them at the airport, a tired-looking man in his 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He shook Lance's hand firmly. Major, I'm sorry for your loss. Where are we on finding my son? Hall appreciated the directness. Candace's house is empty. Neighbors say they saw her and Trevor loading suitcases into a car around 2 a.m. last night. By the time we got there this morning, they were gone. Any hits on their credit cards? Cell phones. Both phones are off. Last ping was near the Mexican border, but they haven't crossed. At least not legally. Hall led them to his unmarked sedan. We've got units watching the crossing points, but if they've got cash and fake IDs, they're already across, Lance finished. He looked at his team. Phil, I need you to access traffic cameras along the border. Carl, coordinate with Hall's people. Jose, Walter, start canvassing Candace's neighbors. Someone saw something. As his team dispersed, Hall drove Lance to his mother's house. The crime scene tape was still up, fluttering in the coastal breeze. Lance had grown up in this small bungalow. Its blue paint now faded from years of salt air. We found her in the bedroom, Hall said quietly. No signs of struggle. The medical examiner thinks she was asleep when it happened. Lance walked through the house he knew better than anywhere else on earth. His childhood photos still hung on the walls. His old baseball trophies collecting dust on a shelf. And in the bedroom, the outline of where his mother's body had been. Trevor's prints were on the pillow, Hall continued. But here's what doesn't add up. Your mother's alarm system was disabled at 11:47 p.m. The code was entered correctly. She would never give Trevor the code. Exactly. But someone did. And I'm betting it was Candace. Hall pulled out his phone, showing Lance a text message. We got this from your mother's phone, sent at 11:30 p.m. the night she died. From Candace's number. The message read, Mom, can you watch Kenny tonight? Emergency came up. Trevor will drop him off. Lance's hand shook. His mother had called Candace Mom because that's what grandmothers did. She trusted her despite everything. Kenny was never dropped off, Lance said. No. And we think that text was sent to lure your mother into disabling the alarm, into expecting them. The cold rage in Lance's chest grew. This wasn't random. This was planned. Calculated. His phone buzzed. Phil, boss, you need to see this. Phil's voice was tight. I'm sending you a file. It's from Candace's cloud backup. Lance's phone chimed. He opened the video file. It was Kenny, his son, sitting in what looked like a motel room, tears streaking his face. Dad! Kenny's voice cracked. Dad, I don't know where I am. Trevor said we're going on a trip, but I want to come home. I want Grandma. Dad, please. The video cut off. Lance's vision went red. Hall put a hand on his shoulder. We'll find him. Yes, Lance said quietly. We will. By midnight, Lance's team had commandeered a conference room at the San Diego PD. Whiteboards covered with names, photos, and timelines filled the walls. Phil had his laptop connected to 3 monitors. Lines of code scrolling as he dug through digital footprints. Got something, Jose said, walking in with Walter. Neighbor 3 houses down from Candace's place has a security camera. Caught Trevor's car leaving at 2:17 a.m. Let me see it. Lance watched the grainy footage. Trevor's black Mercedes, license plate clearly visible. But it was the passenger seat that made him pause. Zoom in. Phil enhanced the image. Candace sat in the passenger seat, but she wasn't looking ahead. She was looking down at something in her lap. Something that glowed. She's on a phone, Walter observed. Not her phone, Phil interjected. We're tracking her number. It hasn't pinged since yesterday. This is a burner. Who's she calling at 2 a.m. while running? Carl asked. Phil's fingers flew across his keyboard. I'm pulling cell tower data for that area, that time frame. He paused. Boss, there were 3 burner phones active in that neighborhood between 2 and 3 a.m. One was moving. That's likely Candace. The other 2 were stationary. Where? One was at the house. The other, Phil frowned, was at your mother's place. The room went silent. They left someone behind, Lance said slowly. Someone to make sure the job was done. Or to collect something, Hall added, joining them. He'd been making calls to other departments. I just got off with forensics. They found something interesting in your mother's safe. It was open when we arrived. My mother never left her safe open. Exactly. And inside, there were documents missing. We can tell from the dust patterns. Something was removed recently. Hall pulled out photos of the safe's interior. Your mother kept meticulous records. I talked to her lawyer. She'd recently updated her will. Lance felt the pieces shifting. What did she leave me? Besides the house? A trust fund she'd been building for Kenny's college. $500,000. My mother was a retired teacher. She didn't have that kind of money. She did as of 6 months ago, Hall said. Inheritance from her sister who passed away in Nevada. The sister had made some smart investments. Your mother was planning to surprise you and Kenny. The picture crystallized. Candace knew. Your mother might have mentioned it, Hall agreed. Maybe during one of Kenny's visits. And if Candace told Trevor, then they had a motive, Carl finished. Kill your mother, take the kid, fake a disappearance or worse, and claim the inheritance as Kenny's guardians. But Kenny has a living father, Jose pointed out. Not if I'm dead too, Lance said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Think about it. I'm on a classified mission in Afghanistan. Anything could happen. An IED, enemy fire, a helicopter crash. All Trevor and Candace had to do was wait. That's cold, Walter said. That's $500,000 and a kid they could manipulate, Phil countered. From what I'm seeing in Candace's financial records, she's desperate. Credit cards maxed out, personal loans in collections. Trevor's even worse. The house is underwater on its mortgage. They're drowning. Lance's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered, putting on speaker. Major Gallagher? A voice he didn't recognize. Male, educated, calm. Who is this? Someone who wants to help you. Trevor Harding has your son. But Trevor is not working alone. Who else? There's a lawyer named Hal Flowers. He specializes in making people disappear. For a price. Trevor hired him 2 weeks ago to arrange new identities and transportation out of the country. Why are you telling me this? Because Flowers owes me money, and dead clients don't pay debts. Find Flowers, you find the trail. The line went dead. Phil was already typing. Hal Flowers, attorney at law. Office in downtown San Diego. Specializes in international custody cases and... He paused, immigration issues. Legitimate or otherwise, Carl said. We need to visit Mr. Flowers, Lance decided. Phil, dig into his records. I want to know every client he's had in the past year. Jose, Walter, find out where he lives. Carl, you're with me. Hall stood. I can't officially sanction breaking into a lawyer's office. Then it's good you're not officially here, Lance said. Brian, I appreciate everything you've done. But from here on out, this gets messy. I can't ask you to risk your badge. Hall considered for a long moment, then shook his head. Your mother babysat my daughter when she was young. Martha Gallagher was good people. I'm in. Hal Flowers' office occupied the third floor of a glass and steel building overlooking the bay. At 3 a.m., the building was empty except for a security guard who Phil had already looped the camera feeds for. Lance picked the lock on Flowers' office door in under 30 seconds. Inside, the space was immaculate. Expensive furniture, diplomas on the wall, photos of Flowers shaking hands with politicians and businessmen. Arrogant, Carl muttered, going through the filing cabinets. Keeps paper records of everything. Old school, Phil said, plugging a USB drive into Flowers' computer. Let's see what digital sins we can find. Lance opened desk drawers systematically. Most were filled with standard office supplies, but the bottom drawer was locked. He jimmied it open. Inside was a burner phone and a ledger. The handwriting was precise, clinical. Names, dates, amounts. Lance photographed every page. Boss, you're going to want to see this. Phil had the computer screen filled with emails. Flowers and Trevor have been corresponding for 3 months. Trevor was planning this long before your mother's sister died. What was the original plan? Kidnapping for ransom. Looks like Trevor knew about your classified work. Figured you'd pay anything to get Kenny back. Phil scrolled through more emails. But then the inheritance happened, and the plan changed. Why risk a kidnapping charge when you could just eliminate the problem permanently? Where are they now? Lance demanded. According to this, Phil pulled up a travel itinerary. They're supposed to meet Flowers in Tijuana tomorrow at noon. He's arranged passage on a cargo ship heading to Panama. From Panama, they could go anywhere, Hall said. Lance checked his watch. 21 hours until the meeting. We cross into Mexico, intercept them before they reach Flowers. That's another country's jurisdiction, Hall warned. If this goes wrong, it won't. Lance's tone left no room for argument. Kenny's running out of time. Every hour we waste is another hour he's scared and alone with people who murdered his grandmother. Carl closed the filing cabinet. I'm in. Me too, Phil said, ejecting his USB drive. The door to the office opened. Everyone's hands went to their weapons. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway. I had a feeling you'd come here. It was a woman's voice. She stepped into the light. It was Megan Farrell, the lawyer who'd represented Candace in the divorce. Lance had last seen her in the courtroom, her face smug as she'd tried to destroy his character on the stand. What are you doing here? Lance asked. I followed you from the police station. I need to talk to you. About Candace. Megan looked nervous, which was new. In the courtroom, she'd been a shark. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know what she was planning. You represented her. In a divorce, yes. Not in murder. Megan's hand shook. She came to my office 3 days ago. Said she needed help accessing a trust fund for Kenny. I told her she'd need your mother's approval as the trustee. She said that wouldn't be a problem. I thought she was going to talk to her. Not. Why should I believe you? Because Candace left a file in my office. I think it's insurance, in case Trevor turns on her. Megan pulled out a manila folder. Emails, text messages, proof that Trevor killed Mark Pennington 3 years ago. Candace helped him cover it up. Lance took the folder. Inside were printouts of conversations between Trevor and Candace dating back years. They'd met while Trevor was under SEC investigation. Candace had been working at the law firm representing the key witness, Pennington. She fed him information, Lance realized, about Pennington's testimony. And when Pennington died, Trevor was free and clear. They've been together ever since. Megan swallowed hard. I think Candace is afraid. I think she knows Trevor will kill her once he doesn't need her anymore. Good, Lance said coldly. She should be afraid. There's an address in there. A backup location in case the Mexico plan fails. It's a cabin in the mountains near Julian. Off the grid, owned by one of Trevor's shell companies. Lance looked at the address. Julian was 2 hours east. Why are you helping me? Because I have a daughter Kenny's age. Because I saw the photos from your mother's house and I couldn't sleep. Because Megan's voice broke. Because I helped Candace take your son away from you in that custody hearing, and I've regretted it every day since. The things she told me about you were lies. I know that now. How do you know? Because a man who beats his wife and neglects his child doesn't have a mother who testifies with that much love in her eyes. Doesn't have army buddies who would follow him anywhere. I should have seen it then. I'm seeing it now. Lance studied her for a long moment. If you're lying, I'm not. I swear on my daughter's life, I'm not. Then prove it. Come with us. The drive to Julian took them through winding mountain roads as dawn broke over the desert. Lance sat in the passenger seat of their rental SUV, studying the cabin's layout that Phil had pulled from county records. Single access road, heavily wooded area, nearest neighbor 2 miles away, Phil reported. If they're there, they picked a good spot. Too good, Carl said from the driver's seat. This feels like a trap. Everything about this feels like a trap, Lance agreed. But we don't have a choice. If Kenny's there, we get him out. If he's not, we make them tell us where he is. Megan sat in the back, pale but determined. What if they shoot first? Then they pick the wrong people to shoot at, Walter said, checking his rifle. The cabin appeared through the trees. A rustic A-frame with a wraparound porch and a Mercedes parked outside. Trevor's car. Lance's heart rate didn't increase. Years of training kept him calm. Phil, thermal scan. Phil aimed a handheld thermal camera at the cabin. 3 heat signatures. 2 adults, 1 smaller. Ground floor, main room. Kenny was alive. Lance felt the knot in his chest loosen slightly. Jose, Walter, you're on the back entrance. Carl, front with me. Phil, overwatch from here. Megan, stay in the vehicle. Lance chambered a round in his pistol. Rules of engagement. I want them alive if possible. But if anyone puts Kenny in danger, drop them. They moved like ghosts through the forest. Lance had done this dance in a dozen countries against enemies far better trained than Trevor Harding. This would be quick. Carl reached the front door first, testing it. Locked. Lance signaled. Breach on 3. 1, 2, 3. Carl's boot hit the door, just below the handle. It crashed inward. Lance was through in a heartbeat, weapon up. The main room was rustic. Fireplace, leather furniture, mounted deer heads on the walls. And in the center, tied to a chair, was Kenny. His son's eyes went wide. Dad, don't move, buddy. I'm here. Lance scanned the room. No sign of Trevor or Candace. Too easy. Way too easy. The thermal scan had shown 3 heat signatures. Lance's combat instinct screamed. Back! Everyone back! The explosion blew out the windows. Lance threw himself over Kenny's chair as the blast wave hit. His ears rang. Smoke filled the room. Training took over. Check yourself for injuries. Check your team. Assess the threat. Sound off, he shouted. Carl's good. Jose and Walter are clear. Phil's okay. Lance coughed, pulling Kenny's chair away from the fire, spreading from the blast point. The bomb had been crude, probably rigged to the door, but effective enough. If Lance hadn't moved when he did, they'd all be dead. He cut Kenny's bonds. His son threw himself into Lance's arms, sobbing. It's okay. I've got you. You're safe now. Dad, they killed Grandma. Trevor killed her, and he said he was going to... Chill. I know, buddy. I know. Lance held his son tight, feeling the weight of 3 days of fear pouring out. Where are they? They left. Last night. Said they'd come back if they needed to. Kenny pulled back, his 8-year-old face streaked with tears and dirt. Dad, there's something else. Trevor made a video. He made me read something. Ice filled Lance's veins. What did you read? I don't remember all of it. Something about you. That you were dangerous and unstable, and that he was protecting me from you. A frame job. Trevor was building a case that Lance was the threat, that Trevor and Candace had taken Kenny to keep him safe. When Lance came after them, Trevor could claim self-defense. Phil, we need to find that video. If it gets out. Already on it, Phil called from outside. But boss, we've got company. Through the broken windows, Lance saw vehicles approaching. Multiple vehicles. Flashing lights. Sheriff's Department, Carl identified. Someone called it in. Probably set to trigger when we breached. Lance looked at Megan, who'd emerged from the SUV. She met his eyes and nodded slowly. She'd make this right. Major Gallagher. A voice called through a megaphone. This is Sheriff Steven Nelson. Come out with your hands up. Lance holstered his weapon and walked out, hands raised, Kenny behind him. Carl and the team followed. Sheriff Nelson was a weathered man in his 60s, hand on his sidearm. We got a call about an explosion and armed intruders. Sheriff, I'm Detective Brian Hall, San Diego PD. Hall had come up behind the sheriff's vehicles, badge out. These men are with me. We're pursuing suspects in a kidnapping and homicide. In my county, your county is harboring fugitives. Hall gestured to Kenny. This child was kidnapped 3 days ago. His grandmother was murdered. We have evidence the suspects rigged this cabin to explode. Nelson's expression shifted as he looked at Kenny, then at the smoking cabin. Who were the suspects? Trevor Harding and Candace Harding. They were here as of last night. Lance kept his voice level professional. They're headed to Tijuana. We have less than 12 hours before they leave the country permanently. Megan stepped forward. Sheriff, I'm an attorney. I have documentation proving everything Major Gallagher just said. My client, Candace Harding, is complicit in murder and kidnapping. I'm cooperating fully with the investigation. Nelson studied them all for a long moment. Then he nodded to his deputies. Lower your weapons. Get the fire department here for this cabin. He looked at Lance. You've got Kenny back. Let us handle it from here. We'll coordinate with San Diego PD and Border Patrol. With respect, Sheriff, that's not going to happen, Lance said quietly. These people killed my mother. They terrorized my son. They're not going to see the inside of a courtroom because they're not going to make it to trial. Major, I can't let you. You can't stop me. Lance's voice was steel. My son is safe. That's all you need to know. Everything else is above your pay grade. Nelson's jaw tightened, but something in Lance's eyes must have convinced him not to push. I didn't see anything here today except a cabin that exploded due to a gas leak. You understand me? Perfectly. Then get the hell out of my county before I change my mind. Kenny fell asleep in the SUV on the way back to San Diego, his head against Lance's shoulder. Lance stared out the window, his mind calculating angles and probabilities. Trevor and Candace had tried to kill him and his team. That changed things. This wasn't just about justice anymore. Where are we taking him? Carl asked from the driver's seat. My mother's house. It's still a crime scene, but it's secure. Lance looked at Brian Hall, who joined them in the convoy. Brian, I need a favor. Name it. Kenny needs protection until this is over. Someone I trust. My wife used to be a cop before she became a teacher. I'll have her stay with Kenny. My house, not yours. Safer that way. Lance nodded gratefully. Kenny, wake up, buddy. His son stirred, blinking. Are we safe now? Almost. You're going to stay with Detective Hall and his family for a little while. Just until I finish some work. You're going after them. It wasn't a question. Kenny was young, but he wasn't stupid. You're going to kill them. The adults in the car shifted uncomfortably. Lance met his son's eyes. I'm going to make sure they can never hurt anyone again. Good. Kenny's voice was hard. Too hard for an 8-year-old. Trevor said, he said Grandma died because she loved you more than him. He said she picked you over him and that made her a problem. What do you mean, pick me over him? I don't know. He said something about how he should have been the one. That your mom rejected him and it was her fault. Kenny frowned. Dad, did Trevor know Grandma before? Lance's blood went cold. He pulled out his phone, calling Phil, who was in the vehicle behind them. Phil, I need you to dig into Trevor's background. Way back. High school, college, everything. What am I looking for? A connection to my mother. To my family. 20 minutes of silence followed as Phil worked. Then, boss, you're not going to believe this. Try me. Trevor Harding. Born Trevor Harding in Seattle, 1987. But that's not his original name. His birth certificate says Trevor Wade. Mother's name, Guadalupe Wade. Lance's memory stirred. His mother had mentioned a Guadalupe once. A woman she'd worked with at the school district decades ago. Keep going. Guadalupe Wade worked at the same elementary school as your mother in the early 90s. Single mother, one son. She applied for a teaching position that your mother got instead. Phil paused. 3 months later, Guadalupe was fired for falsifying student records. She sued the district, claimed your mother had framed her. The case was dismissed for lack of evidence. My mother never mentioned this. Probably because it was ancient history. But here's where it gets interesting. Guadalupe Wade died 5 years ago. Guess who was listed as next of kin? Trevor. And guess who inherited a life insurance policy worth $50,000? Also Trevor. That money was gone within 6 months. Spent on lawyers for his SEC case. The case where Mark Pennington mysteriously died. The pieces fell into place like a perfectly executed mission plan. This wasn't about inheritance money, not entirely. This was about revenge. Trevor blamed my mother for destroying his mother's career, Lance said slowly. He's been planning this for years. Gets better, Phil continued. I found old social media posts. Guadalupe Wade was obsessed with your mother. Posted about her constantly, claiming Martha Gallagher was a liar and a cheat who stole everything from her. She poisoned Trevor against your entire family from childhood. So, when he met Candace, he found someone who could get him close. Your divorce gave him the perfect opportunity. He seduced Candace, married her, and waited for his chance. Lance felt sick. His entire marriage, his divorce, Kenny's suffering, all of it orchestrated by a man seeking revenge for a grievance 3 decades old. Where is he now? Lance asked. Traffic cameras picked up the Mercedes heading south on I-5 an hour ago. They're definitely going to Tijuana. But boss, there's one more thing. Trevor's been in contact with someone else. Someone he calls the insurance. Who? I don't know yet. The communications are encrypted. But whatever it is, Trevor's been paying this person monthly for the past 2 years. $20,000 each payment. That was serious money. Lance's tactical mind raced through possibilities. A hitman? A dirty cop? Someone with leverage? Find out who it is. I don't care what you have to do. On it. They reached Brian Hall's house, a comfortable suburban home with a yard full of toys. Hall's wife, Marie, met them at the door. She was a kind-faced woman who took one look at Kenny and immediately wrapped him in a hug. You poor thing. Come on, I made cookies. Do you like chocolate chip? Kenny looked at Lance, who nodded. It's okay, buddy. You're safe here. Promise you'll come back? I promise. Kenny hugged him fiercely, then followed Marie inside. Lance watched until the door closed, then turned to his team. Gear up. We're going to Mexico. Crossing into Tijuana was easier than expected. Phil had created fake Border Patrol credentials that got them through with their weapons and equipment. Mexico was technically another sovereign nation, but Lance had operated in enough gray areas to know that borders were just lines on maps. The meeting location Phil had pulled from Flowers' emails was a warehouse near the port. The kind of place where shipping containers were loaded and unloaded with no questions asked. 11:45, Carl checked his watch. 15 minutes until the meet. They'd positioned themselves in an abandoned building across from the warehouse, with clear sight lines on all entrances. Phil had a laptop connected to a signal jammer, ready to cut all cell communications in the area. I see movement, Jose called from his sniper position. Black Mercedes pulling up to the south entrance. Through his binoculars, Lance watched as Trevor and Candace exited the vehicle. Trevor looked nervous, constantly checking his surroundings. Candace looked exhausted, her makeup smudged, her expensive clothes wrinkled. They're alone, Walter reported. No backup that I can see. Stay sharp. This feels wrong. A minute later, a town car pulled up. Hal Flowers stepped out, looking every bit the expensive lawyer in his tailored suit. He greeted Trevor and Candace, gesturing toward the warehouse. Phil, can you get audio? Working on it. Phil adjusted a directional microphone. Static, then voices. Everything arranged, Flowers was saying. The ship leaves at 2 p.m. You'll be in international waters by nightfall. And the documentation? Trevor asked. New passports, birth certificates, everything you need. You're now the Morrison family. Trevor Morrison, wife Candace, son Kenneth. Lance's grip tightened on his rifle. They were taking his son's name, using it for their escape. What about Gallagher? Candace's voice was shrill with stress. What if he finds us? He won't. The cabin was rigged perfectly. He's either dead or he'll be arrested for the explosion. Either way, he's not your problem anymore. And the money? Trevor pressed. Will be transferred once you're safely in Panama. $500,000 as agreed. Flowers pulled out an envelope. Here are your tickets and instructions. Follow them exactly. This was it. The moment they'd been waiting for. Lance signaled his team. They moved like shadows, crossing the street in tactical formation. But before they reached the warehouse, a new vehicle appeared. A white van unmarked. It screeched to a halt in front of the warehouse. The side door slid open. 4 men in tactical gear emerged, weapons drawn. DEA. Everyone on the ground. Lance's team froze. This wasn't supposed to happen. Trevor and Candace dropped immediately, hands up, but Flowers ran. One of the DEA agents fired. A rubber bullet that hit Flowers in the back. He went down hard. Phil, what the hell is going on? Lance demanded. I don't know. These guys aren't on any official roster for cross-border operations today. Phil's fingers flew across his keyboard. Wait, boss, these aren't real DEA agents. The van's not registered to any agency. Lance's combat instinct screamed. It's a hit. Everyone down. The fake DEA agents opened fire. Not at Trevor and Candace, but at Flowers. The lawyer's body jerked as bullets tore through him. Then the agents turned their weapons on Trevor and Candace. Lance made a split-second decision. He couldn't let them die. Not before he got answers. Not before they paid properly. Suppressing fire, he ordered. His team opened up. The fake agents scattered, surprised by the opposition. One went down immediately. Carl shot, catching him in the shoulder. The others dove behind their van. In the chaos, Trevor grabbed Candace and ran into the warehouse. Jose, Walter, secure those shooters. Carl with me. Lance was already moving, his rifle up, his training taking over. The warehouse interior was a maze of shipping containers and crates. Shadows everywhere. Perfect for an ambush. Trevor, Lance called out. It's over. Those men out there, they were here to kill you. The only reason you're alive is because of me. You're lying. Trevor's voice echoed from somewhere ahead. This is all your fault. Your mother ruined everything. She destroyed my mother's life. Your mother destroyed her own life when she falsified records. She was trying to help students. Your mother was a self-righteous bitch who couldn't stand competition. Lance moved toward the voice, Carl covering his 6. Is that what you told yourself when you suffocated her? When you looked an old woman in the eye and killed her? She deserved it. She looked at me. She recognized me. After all these years, she finally realized who I was. And you know what she said? Trevor's voice broke. She said she was sorry about my mother. Sorry. Like that fixed anything. Lance saw movement. A flash of blonde hair. Candace. He altered course, Carl splitting off to flank. Where's Kenny? Candace screamed. What did you do with my son? He's safe. No thanks to you. I was protecting him. From you. You're never home. Always on some mission. Always choosing the military over your family. I chose to serve my country. You chose to help a murderer. Lance was close now. He could hear her breathing, ragged and panicked. Tell me, Candace, what did you know Trevor planned to kill my mother? Before or after you married him? I didn't know. Liar. Lance rounded a container. Candace was there, pressed against a crate, mascara running down her face. You knew everything. You fed him information about my deployments, about my mother's trust fund, about Kenny's schedule. You were in this from the start. He loved me. You never loved me like he did. He's using you. Just like he used Mark Pennington. Just like he used my mother. Lance lowered his rifle slightly. Where's Trevor? I don't know. He ran. He left me. Realization dawned on her face. He left me. Gunfire erupted outside. Jose's voice crackled over the radio. Boss, we've got more incoming. Real Mexican police this time. Detain her, Lance told Carl, moving past Candace. Trevor. He found him near the back exit, fumbling with a lock. Trevor spun, pulling a pistol. Lance's rifle was already aimed. Don't. Lance's voice was cold. Drop it. You're gonna kill me anyway. Maybe. But if you shoot at me, it'll be faster. Lance stepped closer. My mother recognized you. She apologized. And you killed her for it. She ruined my life. She got a job you wanted 30 years ago. That's not ruin, that's life. Lance's finger tightened on the trigger. You killed her. You terrorized my son. You tried to frame me. For what? For revenge over something that happened when you were a child. You don't understand what it was like. My mother died alone and bitter because of yours. Your mother died because she made bad choices and poisoned you against innocent people. Lance could hear Mexican police shouting outside, getting closer. Last chance, Trevor. Drop the gun. Trevor's hand shook. For a moment, Lance thought he might actually surrender. Then Trevor smiled. You know what the funny thing is? I didn't even kill your mother myself. Lance's blood froze. What? The insurance I told Candace about. The one I've been paying for 2 years. Trevor's smile widened. Your mother knew him. Trusted him. He was there that night. Where are my gloves? He did it while I established an alibi, 3 hours away. Who? Someone you trust. Someone close to. Trevor's head snapped back. A single gunshot from outside the warehouse. He crumpled. Lance dove for cover, but the second shot never came. He crawled to Trevor's body. Dead. The shot had been precise, professional. A sniper round through the temple. Someone had silenced Trevor permanently. Lance keyed his radio. Status. Mexican police have the area surrounded. Phil reported. The fake DEA agents are down. All dead. Looks like suicide pills. And boss, there's a problem. What problem? Brian Hall just called. There was an incident at his house. Someone tried to grab Kenny. Marie fought them off, but Phil's voice was strained. Hall's been shot. He's alive, but he's asking for you. Says it's urgent. The insurance. Trevor's killer. Someone close to Lance. Someone with access to Kenny. Lance looked at Trevor's corpse and felt no satisfaction. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The Mexican police detained them for 4 hours before someone with enough authority decided that maybe holding armed American military personnel wasn't worth the diplomatic headache. Megan Farrell had called in favors, contacted the U.S. Embassy, and somehow gotten them released with their weapons confiscated, but their freedom intact. Candace was arrested by the Mexican authorities, facing extradition. Lance didn't even look at her as they passed each other in the police station. She was broken, crying, begging for mercy. She'd get none from him. The flight back to San Diego felt longer than any deployment. Kenny was safe. Marie Hall had called to confirm, but Brian Hall was in surgery. A bullet to the shoulder, another to the abdomen. Critical, but stable. Who shot him? Lance asked Phil as soon as they were airborne in the chartered plane. Unknown. But here's what we know. The attacker was male, approximately 6 feet tall, wearing tactical gear. He breached Hall's back door at 15:47. Marie encountered him in the hallway. He shot Hall when he intervened. And Kenny. Safe room. Marie's husband had installed one after a home invasion in their neighborhood last year. She got Kenny inside before the shooter could reach him. The shooter didn't kill Hall, Lance observed. He could have clean shots to center mass, but he aimed for non-lethal areas. Warning, Carl suggested, or he didn't want to kill a cop and bring that heat. Lance studied the tactical analysis Phil had put together. This is professional work. Former military, maybe law enforcement. The insurance Trevor mentioned, Phil said quietly. $20,000 a month for 2 years. That's almost $500,000 in payments. For what? One hit on my mother? That's way too much for a single job. Unless it wasn't a single job, Phil brought up financial records. I tracked Trevor's payments. They started 24 months ago, right after he married Candace. But there are gaps. Months where he didn't pay. So what was he buying? Not a what. A who. Phil pulled up a file. I cross-referenced everyone close to your investigation. Everyone with access to information about your family, your deployments, your mother's house. Lance's stomach dropped. Phil, just tell me. Remember how Trevor knew you'd be on a classified mission? How he knew the exact timing of when to kill your mother, so you couldn't get back in time? Yes. That information wasn't public. Your deployment schedules are classified. The only people who know are your commanding officers and my unit. Lance finished. He looked at Carl, Jose, and Walter. The men he'd trusted with his life for years. Not us, boss, Carl said firmly. We've been with you since the beginning. I know, and Lance did know. These men had proven themselves in combat too many times to doubt. Phil, who else had access? Phil hesitated. 6 months ago, your unit got a new logistics coordinator. Someone who manages deployment schedules, mission timings, equipment requests. Ooh, Phil turned his laptop screen. A personnel file appeared. Specialist Charlie Conley. Age 32. Former Army Ranger. Transferred to your unit from Fort Bragg after medical discharge due to PTSD. Exemplary record. Married, 2 kids. Currently stationed at Camp Pendleton, Lance finished. 20 minutes from San Diego. 20 minutes from my mother's house. Boss, this is just a theory. We don't have proof. But Lance's instincts were screaming. Charlie Conley. He met the man twice, maybe 3 times. Quiet, efficient, always professional. Never stood out. Pull everything on him. Service record, medical history, financial statements, family connections. Everything. Already done. Phil brought up more files. Here's where it gets interesting. Conley's wife filed for divorce 8 months ago. Claimed financial infidelity. He was hiding money. The case was settled out of court. Conley paid her $50,000 to drop it. Where did he get $50,000 on a specialist salary? Exactly. Phil showed bank statements. Regular deposits of $20,000 into an offshore account. Dates match perfectly with Trevor's payments. So Trevor hired Conley to kill my mother and provide intelligence. Lance felt cold rage settling over him. Charlie Conley murdered a retired teacher in her sleep for money. There's more. Conley requested leave starting yesterday. Said he had a family emergency. Guess where he went? San Diego. And guess who called him 3 hours ago? Hall's shooter. Phil nodded grimly. Cell tower data puts Conley's phone near Hall's house at the time of the shooting. But he wasn't the shooter. His phone was in his car, parked 2 blocks away. He was coordinating. Lance stood. Where is he now? Last ping was at a motel near the airport. The Desert Sun Inn. How far? 30 minutes. Lance looked at his team. They were exhausted, running on adrenaline and fury. But their eyes were hard. Ready. He tried to take my son, Lance said quietly. He killed my mother. He shot a good cop who was protecting Kenny. So we're going full dark? Carl asked. Full dark, Lance confirmed. No witnesses. No evidence. No mercy. The Desert Sun Inn was exactly what its name suggested. A rundown motel on the edge of the airport where people came to disappear or conduct business they didn't want recorded. Cash only, no questions asked. Room 117. That's where Conley's phone was pinging. Lance's team surrounded the building. Jose and Walter on the roof of the adjacent building. Sniper rifles trained on the room's window. Carl at the back exit. Phil monitoring all communications and ready to jam any calls. Lance stood outside the door, his sidearm drawn. He'd left his rifle in the vehicle. This needed to be personal. He knocked. Room service. Silence. Lance knocked again, harder. Charlie Conley. Open the door. A pause, then, Major Gallagher. I wondered when you'd figure it out. Open the door, or I'll put a shaped charge on it. The lock clicked. The door opened a crack. Charlie Conley stood there, looking nothing like the quiet logistics specialist Lance had met months ago. His eyes were cold, calculating. A professional. Can we talk like civilized people? Conley asked. You murdered my mother. You tried to kidnap my son. There's nothing civilized about this conversation. Fair enough. Conley stepped back. But you might want to hear what I have to say before you pull that trigger. Lance entered the room, weapon trained on Conley. The specialist had his hands raised, no weapon visible. Carl, I'm inside, Lance said into his radio. Anyone tries to leave, drop them. Copy that. Conley moved to a chair and sat carefully. Trevor was an idiot. Emotional, impulsive. He wanted revenge so badly he couldn't see he was being played. Played by who? You. By someone much smarter than either of us. Conley pulled out a phone. Not his regular phone, a burner. I'm going to open something. Don't shoot. He tapped the screen, then turned it to show Lance. It was a video. The timestamp showed it was recorded 3 hours ago. The video showed Brian Hall's living room. And there, clear as day, was the shooter. He moved with practiced efficiency, checking corners, searching for something. But what made Lance's blood run cold was when the shooter turned toward the camera. It was General Edmund Dickey. That's impossible, Lance said. General Dickey was in Afghanistan. Was he? Calmly asked. Or did he tell you he was? Check the timestamp on that call you got about your mother. Then check when Dickey's plane landed at San Diego International. Phil's voice crackled over the radio. Boss, I'm pulling flight records now. Dickey's military jet. It landed in San Diego 6 hours before you got the call about your mother. He was stateside when he told you he was overseas. Lance's world tilted. General Edmund Dickey. The man who'd given him his wings. Who'd promoted him, mentored him, trusted him with the most dangerous missions. What? Lance asked. Money, calmly said simply. Dickey's been running a side business for years. Intelligence, mostly. Selling classified information to the highest bidder. I was one of his assets. He placed me in your unit to monitor your deployments, feed information to buyers. And Trevor was a client. Wanted information on you, your family, your schedule. Dickey saw an opportunity. He knew about your mother's inheritance through background checks he'd run on you for security clearances. Knew about the will. So he made a deal with Trevor. I'd help kill your mother, and Dickey would get a cut of the inheritance money through Trevor. But Trevor never got the money. Exactly. Which is why Dickey killed him. Cut his losses. Calmly leaned forward. And now he's trying to tie up all the loose ends. Starting with Kenny, then you, then me. Why should I believe anything you're saying? Because I have proof. Calmly tossed a USB drive on the table. Bank transfers, encrypted communications, video evidence of Dickey meeting with foreign agents. Everything you need to bury him. You're trying to save yourself. I'm trying to stay alive long enough to get out of the country. Dickey's insurance policy on this whole operation was making sure everyone involved either died or disappeared. Trevor, Flowers, the fake DEA agents, Hall Shooter, all Dickey's people, all being systematically eliminated. Hall Shooter, dead, found in his car 2 hours ago. Bullet to the head, made to look like suicide. Lance's mind raced. If this was true, if Dickey was really behind everything, why did you kill my mother? Lance asked, his voice deadly quiet. Orders. Dickey said it was just a job. An old woman who wouldn't suffer, wouldn't know what happened. He told me she was already dying of cancer, that I'd be doing her a favor. She didn't have cancer. I know that now. For the first time, Conley looked almost human. I have a daughter Kenny's age. When I saw what Trevor planned to do with the boy, when I realized Dickey had lied about everything, I couldn't do it. I couldn't hurt a kid. So you shot Hall instead? I shot near Hall. If I'd wanted him dead, he'd be dead. I was trying to scare Dickey off, make him think the operation was too hot. Conley's jaw tightened. Didn't work. He escalated. Lance's radio crackled. Boss, we got incoming. 3 vehicles, heavily armed. They're surrounding the motel. Conley's face went pale. He found me. Phil, identification, military vehicles. Unmarked, but definitely ours. And boss, Dickey's in the lead vehicle. Lance looked at Conley. Give me the USB drive. Conley tossed it. Lance caught it, pocketed it. What are you going to do? Conley asked. What I do best. Lance keyed his radio. Everyone listen up. We got hostiles incoming. Rules of engagement. Anyone who shoots first is fair game. But I need Dickey alive. Am I clear? Crystal, Carl responded. Boss, Phil's voice was urgent. Dickey's on the motel's emergency line. He's calling for backup, claiming you've gone rogue and taken a hostage. How long until real backup arrives? 10 minutes. Maybe less. Not enough time to escape, but enough time to end this. Conley, you're coming with me. You run. I shoot you myself. Understand? Understood. Lance moved to the door. Outside, he could see Dickey's vehicles forming a perimeter. The general himself stood near the lead vehicle, megaphone in hand. Major Gallagher, we know Conley's in there. Send him out, and we can resolve this peacefully. Lance stepped outside, weapon lowered, hands visible. General, this is unexpected. Dickey's expression was calm, controlled. The same face he'd shown in 100 briefings. Lance, I know this has been difficult. Your mother's death, Kenny's kidnapping. But Specialist Conley is a suspect in multiple murders. Let's handle this. Like you handled Trevor Harding? Put a bullet in his head before he could talk. Dickey's eye twitched. I don't know what Conley's told you, but he's a manipulator. He's PTSD affected and dangerous. Show me your hands, General. Excuse me? Your hands. Show me. Slowly, Dickie raised his hands. His right hand had a fresh bandage across the palm. Rope burn, Lance observed. The kind you get rappelling into a house through a second-story window. Like Hall's house. Dickie's facade cracked slightly. You're making a mistake, Major. The only mistake I made was trusting you. Lance raised his voice so everyone could hear. General Edmund Dickie is under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted kidnapping, and treason. Anyone who interferes will be considered an accessory. Dickie's men shifted nervously. They were soldiers following orders. But they weren't stupid. Lance, think about what you're doing, Dickie said, his voice low and dangerous. Your career, your son's future. Walk away now, and I'll make this all go away. Like you made my mother go away. Your mother was collateral damage in a much larger operation. Sometimes sacrifices are necessary. The admission hung in the air. Several of Dickie's men lowered their weapons slightly, uncertain. Did you all hear that? Phil's voice came through speakers Lance hadn't noticed. The tech specialist had hacked the motel's PA system. General Edmund Dickie just admitted to ordering the murder of a civilian. I'm broadcasting this to every military frequency in the region. Dickie's composure shattered. He reached for his sidearm. Lance was faster. His shot hit Dickie's hand, the pistol flying away. The general dropped to his knees, clutching his wounded hand. Arrest him, Lance ordered Dickie's men. Or I will. For a long moment, no one moved. Then one of the soldiers, a young Lieutenant Lance recognized from briefings, stepped forward and placed zip-tie cuffs on Dickie. Sir, the lieutenant said to Lance, what are your orders? Secure the general. Wait for backup. And someone call an ambulance for his hand. Sirens wailed in the distance. Real backup, real authorities. Lance looked at Conley. You're going to tell them everything. Every detail. Every name. And maybe, just maybe, you'll get to see your daughter grow up from behind bars instead of a grave. Conley nodded slowly. I can live with that. 3 weeks later, Lance sat on his mother's porch, watching Kenny play in the yard. The boy was laughing, chasing a neighbor's dog. It was the first time Lance had heard him laugh since everything happened. Brian Hull limped up the walkway, his arm in a sling, but alive and healing. Beautiful day. It is. Lance gestured to a chair. How's Marie? Tough as nails. She's already back to teaching. Says if she can fight off a train killer, middle schoolers don't scare her anymore. She saved my son's life. I owe her everything. She says you saved all of us. Hull settled into the chair with a grunt. Dickie's officially charged. Conley's cooperating. Candace took a plea deal. Life without parole in exchange for testimony. And Trevor's mother? The original grievance. Martha did nothing wrong. The school board confirmed it. Guadalupe Wade was fired for cause, and the lawsuit was frivolous. Trevor spent his entire life chasing a ghost. Lance watched Kenny. His son had been through hell, but was resilient. Like his grandmother. I'm putting in my resignation, Lance said quietly. From the military? I've spent 15 years at war. Maybe it's time I spent some years at peace. With my son. What will you do? Kenny mentioned he wants to learn baseball. Thought I'd coach his little league team. Hull smiled. From classified missions to coaching 8-year-olds. That's quite a change. It's the change I should have made years ago. Kenny ran over, breathless and happy. Dad, can we get ice cream? Sure, buddy. Let me grab my keys. As Kenny ran inside, Hull stood to leave. Your mother would be proud of how you handled this, of how you're handling Kenny. I hope so. Lance looked at the house where he'd grown up, where his mother had raised him alone, where she'd loved unconditionally. She deserved better than what happened to her. She got justice, and she got a son who moved heaven and earth to protect her grandson. I'd say that's something. After Hull left, Lance went inside. The house still smelled like his mother, lavender and old books. He decided to keep it to raise Kenny here. Let the boy grow up with memories of the woman who'd love them both. On the mantel was a photo of Martha Gallagher, smiling at the camera, Kenny on her lap. She looked happy. I got him back, Mom, Lance said quietly, and I made them pay. The house was silent, but Lance felt at peace for the first time in weeks. Justice had been served, and tomorrow There would be ice cream and baseball and all the simple moments he'd missed while chasing wars across the globe. Tomorrow, there would be life.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.